Hey, Steve Noble, Noble Moto. Got our friend's GSXR up on the lift today, and what we're going to do is put new front brake pads on this thing. This is an easy task. You can do it on your own. It's just going to require some basic hand tools and maybe a torque wrench. Should be pretty simple. So in order to remove your brake pads, you technically just have to remove this Allen screw here, and then it will pull out of there. But before we take the caliper off, we do want to break those bolts free. This takes a 5mm Allen wrench. You should be able to just lefty-loosey this plug right on out of there. Sorry, that pin right out of there. And that actually goes to the eyelet on the top of the brake pads. There's that one as well. Once you have these out, you want to check these for wear. If they've got a lot of divots worn in them, maybe the pads have been kind of chewing away at them for a few miles, it wouldn't hurt to replace them. These ones look pretty good, but give yours a good look over before you throw the new pads in. Next, you're going to remove this bolt here and this bolt here. So first, break those free. Now you can just back those bolts right out of there. They should be the same bolt, so it shouldn't matter if you get them switched up, but I do try to keep them in order just in case. From there, you can grab your caliper, kind of wiggle it this way a little bit, and it should just slide right off of there. Whoop. There you go, just like that. Now you can see the brake pads here. You can pull them all out the bottom. So these are your brake pads right there. Now before you put your new pads in there, you're going to have to recompress the calipers. And if you try to just squeeze one piston, the other pistons will come out, and it turns into this crappy game of whack-a-mole. So what we're going to do is put the old pads back in there. Now on the GSXR and a lot of other sport bikes, you won't be able to just recompress the pistons in the calipers. There's a little check valve up in here that prevents you from doing that, at least in large volumes. So you may have to crack this bleeder free as you recompress the pistons. So put a hose on it into the catch can. Helps if you have an assistant, but you should be able to just barely crack it free with the hose on there, recompress the pistons in the caliper, then close this. And if you do that, you might have to bleed it, you might not. Usually you should get enough fluid kind of trapped in the hose as it comes out of there that you shouldn't get any air in the system. But give it a good close inspection. Test out your brakes gently before you go trying your first stoppie to show off in front of your friends. Then we're going to take a big flathead screwdriver. So we're going to take this flathead screwdriver, we're going to put it in there and twist. And as we do this, you'll notice the pistons start to compress back in there. You want to use the old pads to do this because it's going to chew up the surface of the pad. A lot of people will use a C-clamp for this, and that's fine. However, you're apt to screw up the face of the caliper. It won't functionally hurt anything, but cosmetically it will scratch it up pretty well. So I like to do it this way. And I've always had pretty good luck with it this way too. Now to reinstall the brake pads, you should be able to just slide them down in here. Whoop, before we do that. Now again, you don't have to take the brake line off of this thing. I'm doing this partially because I'm doing multiple videos at the same time, and it just makes it a lot easier to show these things on camera when you can spin the caliper around. So you're going to see you have these spring clips right up here. Let's push those out of there. This thing right here, What this is this holds a small amount of pressure onto your brake pads. And hopefully it keeps the brake pads from going ee when you're moving your motorcycle around. If you have really squeaky brake pads, you can replace these things. However, sometimes certain brake pads just squeak, and it just is what it is, and you just have to deal with it. But it should just slide right back down in there. It clips into the top of the caliper. Try to get in there where you can see it. Whoop, goes in there just like that. Then you can take your new brake pads, remember? Rabbit ears up, friction material in. Same with this one. Slide those in there and make sure they're seated back into place. Same with on the top side. Then you can reinstall each pin. You may have to jiggle them around a little bit to get that pin to line up with those rabbit ears on the brake pad, but it will go. Let's do the front one as soon as I figure out where I put it. Oh, there it is. Slide that one in there as well. Now those pins should slide down in there. They should start in easily with your fingertips. Once they're started in there by a few, give your pads an inspection. See how crooked this is? That's no bueno. There we are. Pop the pads down in place. Now you can run these pins the rest of the way in here. And then when I have the caliper back, then when I have the caliper back on the bike, we'll torque them to spec. Again, caliper removal is not necessary. Then when I have the caliper back on the bike, we'll torque them to spec. Again, brake line removal is not necessary. Now you do want to make sure before you put the caliper back on that your pads are sitting more than far enough apart that the brake rotor will sit in between the two. And also, you have these alignment studs here and there. Make sure that's nice and clean of debris. That's a precision fit. And you don't want to have any dirt or crud in there because everything takes up space, including grease and oil. So slide that down over top. It should sit in place just like that. Then from there, you can put your mounting bolts back inside. Once they're in there, you can torque both of them to spec. Then you can torque your brake caliper pins to spec also.